Hello, everybody. Welcome back to DevDive Side Table, a conversational podcast where we take a deep dive into the world of indie tabletop game development and uncover the stories behind the games that we all love. On this week's dive, we welcome Josh Roberts, founder of very special games, creators of Ransom Notes, Abducktion, Tiny Laser Heist, and so much more. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm just thrilled to get into your brain because your games are so unique, so silly and wonderful, and I can't wait to dive deep into them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support what we do here at Indie Rift, please consider going to Patreon, patreon.com/Indie Rift. It's very simple. $1 gets you bonus content, bonus shows, into our Discord, all fun stuff. And I want to thank our Patreon producer, Colton, the Journeyman Nestler. Thank you so much for all of your support. Can't continue to do this stuff without all of your support. So thank you very much. And if you are watching on YouTube, hit the sub button, throw a little thumbs up on there. It doesn't hurt anybody. Josh, I was telling you right before we started how one of your games infiltrated every single aspect of my social media life at one time. And that was Abducktion, which I think is adorable and cute, but it was all over. It was like I had ads everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, and I kept looking at it and going, all right, fine. I'll check it out. And absolutely in love. So kudos to that. But let's go before that. How did you get started in this crazy business?
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders. My co-founder is Evan Katz. He lives in Atlanta now. But when we got started, we worked at the same growth strategy and innovation consulting firm in Memphis, Tennessee. It's called Epic Pivot now.
Okay.
Basically doing consulting work for mid-market, 50 to a couple $100 million companies, usually founder-owned or like child of founder-led sort of organizations.
Right.
And Evan and I had been working together for a couple of years. And one day I show up in the office and he says, do you think there's a direct correlation between someone's age and the amount of money they're willing to spend on a steak dinner? So, you're 20 years old, you just got out of high school, whatever, probably don't have a ton of money in your pocket. And maybe the steepest dinner you want to get is $20, right?
Okay.
But then get to your 60s and you've got a long career behind you and you're getting ready to retire and, maybe you're going to spend $60 on a steak dinner. So, slightly amusing conversation, but he says to me, do you think we can make a game out of that? And so starting that morning, we started drawing up some cards and some prompts and some other things. And by lunchtime that day, we had the first prototype for what was our first game, Charty Party. And we played it in the conference room with some coworkers and some interns. And it was, clunky and had a long way to go as far as design goes. But the takeaway, it was fun. Everybody had a good time. So that's where we started and we just kind of kept going from there.
But why did the thought, can we make this a game? Like, did you have any conversations prior to that of like, hey, I would like to make a game one day? Or like, was this just completely out of the blue? Like, this seems like the ramblings of a madman and you somehow made it into a company that's shipping millions of games. Like, what?
Yeah. I think people who play games kind of have a weird magnetism. I think people who have the same taste in music or people who are readers or, any number of hobbies, CrossFitters, vegans, whatever it is, like some people are just like able to find each other because they have this common thread, whether they know it or not. And Evan's been playing games and making games and just kind of up to various forms of mischief his entire life with his family. Board games were like a big part of my life growing up. So when he said, do you think we can make a game out of it? I mean, it was a very spontaneous-ish thing. Like obviously he'd been thinking about making a game. But he and I hadn't talked about, let's start a games business together. It was a very kind of organic, spontaneous thing that happened that day.
That is the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I tell people all the time that we backed into the business, and I can't emphasize enough that we stumbled backed in completely on accident.
So what kind of success did you have with that initial launch? Like, obviously it was successful enough that you kept going, but like just setting expectations for other humans that might be thinking of the same thing, not those cats and dogs out there. I don't know why I said humans. But setting expectations, like what happened with that first release?
Yeah, well, there's a lot in that question. So I'll start with what happened with that release. So our moonshot goal in the beginning with Charty Party was, man, this would be a great story to tell. Like, let's make this game, let's get it up on Kickstarter. Maybe we get a couple copies produced, and we have this thing that we can put on our shelves, and we've got a story to tell the rest of our lives. And that was kind of what we thought the ceiling was for this. But kind of along the way, as we're developing the game and we're play testing it and taking it out to bars and board game bars and that sort of thing, it really seems like there's something there. Like, people are having a good time with this thing. And we keep sort of taking the next logical steps. And as we're developing the Kickstarter page for it, we start learning about Facebook ads, which you mentioned earlier. And it kind of just came together where that Kickstarter really just outperformed our expectations. And if you're interested, I can go into, I don't know that we definitely know why, but we have some hypotheses as to why it outperformed.
I would love to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the stuff. That's why I did this show. I don't know if you know the background, but we have DevDive, a conversational podcast. That's like our main show, and
Yep.
we've done over 400 indie game, video game interviews, and like the stories we love are the nuts and bolts, normal people just doing really great creative stuff, and the trials, the tribulations, and all that stuff is like totally why we do this. So I would absolutely love to know what your theories were on why that was a success. And really, I would
Yeah.
like to know what success, like you said that, what your ceiling was, but like, what was the moment where you said, oh, this is successful. This is something.
Yeah. So the moment we knew we had something, it took us about a week to reach our $10,000 goal for the campaign, and we were pretty happy with that. And $10,000 was going to help us produce, a couple thousand copies of the game,
Sure.
and get it to backers and that sort of thing. And then, that number just kept creeping up and up and up and up. And one day we kind of looked at each other and we're like, well, now we kind of have this side business that we have to run. And we got serious about learning about the manufacturing process. And Kickstarter is pretty great for game developers. There's a lot of good resources on there. And at the time, the conventional wisdom that there's really two manufacturers to use. We reached out to both of them and liked one, and we've been working with them ever since. That was 6 years ago. And one of the things that stops game developers dead in their tracks a lot of times is, once you've got it manufactured, how do you get it in from China? And a lot of people are afraid of that, and it's this big scary thing. My best friend of like almost 30 years works in international freight. So when we started having the scary conversations about how do we get it in from China, I was like, I know, I'll call my buddy Kenny and he'll help us. And basically for us, that was me calling Kenny, and he said, put me in touch with your account manager in China. We'll take care of the rest. So we got very
awesome.
lucky there.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that's always been one of those questions that I find myself thinking about every time, especially the larger games, like the ones that have like 100 minis, or like just,
Yeah.
or the box is like this big. Like, what is that? That has to be not just a monetary task to get
Yeah.
done, but like just logistically, that's got to be a nightmare. It just has to be. Um, and 6 years ago, I mean, that was, you were kind of in the middle of Tariff Town then, I think, too, right? Like, did you have any issues with
If,
actually importing
if
and all that stuff?
no, if it was significant at the time, our scale wasn't enough that I really
Right.
noticed.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And this was pre-COVID,
Yeah.
so freight rates had not gotten out of control. Availability was pretty widespread. Like, it was a lot easier
Right. Okay.
when we got started.
Makes
Which
sense.
I don't know. I don't know how easy it would be to do the same thing now. Maybe we'd still be successful, but I will say, if you've got a game idea and that's the only thing stopping you from starting a game business that you're going to run, don't let that stop you. Like, there's plenty of tools out there now that the international freight part is excessively doable, if you're willing to put a little elbow grease. But now you're touching on something that's really interesting to me. The idea of like how much it costs to produce and move and store some of these bigger boxes. I have a pre-order for the second edition of Gloomhaven that is going to arrive, sometime this spring or summer, whenever they get to the fulfillment.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, like at least a little bit every single day, I'm like, this was the #1 rated game on Board Game Geek for like 8 years or something. How does it not make business sense for them to be in stock all the time? And it's got to be because it's a gigantic box that weighs a bunch. And like, if you're not just constantly moving them, your storage fees have to be astronomical. And it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a shame because something that high quality that they put that much love and attention into making,
Yeah.
it just like there's not a business way to make it readily available is kind of a bummer.
I mean, especially nowadays, like you could probably sell something like that with the like CAD files or whatever to like just 3D print the minis yourself. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
say, just put the box with the maps and the books and everything and just like the files to download the minis. Or make a cheaper version with like cardboard standees and stuff like that. Like there's definitely options, but not without sacrificing the wow factor of what
Yeah.
a game like that really is, right? Like that's really what draws your attention is like you look at it and you go, "Oh, you must have been collecting these." It looks like a TTRPG. Like it looks like a fully fledged thing that you might have been collecting minis for or pieces for years. And
Yeah.
that that that's I guess that's kind of, and I would love to have them on the show to really talk about that, but it's got to be a pride of product sort of
Yeah.
factor where it's like, okay, we can't make a bajillion of them because it's borderline impossible. Um, so we're just gonna, we know what we have, we know the quality that it is, so we're just gonna let the market dictate what happens with this thing. And now, I didn't even know they had a second one coming. I'm not a Gloomhaven guy. I have the buttons one, the mini one that I play all the time, and
Mhm.
again keep losing at, and like the third level. Um, but yeah, like I wonder about that too. I interviewed a few shows ago, Galen, I believe it was Galen Games Design, I believe, that does the mint tins, tiny little games in a
Oh
tin.
yeah.
I
Okay.
think it was Galen's. Um, and I'll check before we end so I don't look like a complete jackass. But and that to me makes all the sense in the world. It's like, oh, you could probably get 3 boxes of that and you'll be set for 6 months of inventory, Um so after you had the success of
Hmm.
your first game, what was the name of it again? I'm so sorry. I don't have my
All
list
good.
handy.
Charty Party,
It
and
was Charty Party, right,
it's
right.
a sort of prompt response in the vein of Cards Against Humanity. And
Mhm.
this, so we mentioned earlier, one of my hypotheses about why it succeeded is, Cards Against Humanity. Say whatever you want to about it. It opened up the game table for an astronomical amount of people.
Yep.
Like it brought more people to the game table than anything else in history. So I not my favorite game in the world, but I'm eternally grateful for what they did.
Hell yeah.
Uh, anyway, so Charty Party's that deal, except the sort of prompt card is a chart, and it's like age, and there's a line graph, and it peaks at a certain age and goes down, and then the card you have in your hand, you're basically making the joke like at the peak of the chart is where the joke is. So I think the hypothesis for why it took off is it's kind of twofold. So Cards Against Humanity like established this method of play that people were super familiar with, so there was no confusion about what Charty Party was when people saw the ads. But part two, you know, the sense of humor in Charty Party is a lot different than Cards Against Humanity. So like the mechanic is a clone, but like we tried to make it to where you kind of have to think about the cards you're putting down and like what's the funniest joke here at this peak. And not all cards work with every chart, so like sometimes you don't have the greatest hand in the world, but I think it just found a niche of people who wanted something that was maybe a little more thinky than Cards Against Humanity,
A
but
little bit more
but kind of had the
strategy.
same feel and accessibility. Yeah.
Uh, what was your favorite joke you were ever able to do? Like what was the
In
one that
Charty
just,
Party.
yeah, the one that just killed everyone? I know you
So,
remember it. Everyone does.
No, so yeah, I remember for
No,
all the games
nothing was better
because
than than making uh so my mother-in-law, oh, shit, now I don't remember. Somebody that is way older than they should be saying pixelated bukkake. Nothing beats that for of all time. So
yeah.
I think it might have been my wife's grandmother. I can't remember. But go
Oh,
ahead,
wow,
continue. What was
that's
your
cool. No, so my favorite card in Charty Party is it's a response card that says "Dudes at your mom's house," and I kind of used it as the litmus test for every chart. Like, if "Dudes at your mom's house" is not funny for the chart, like, let's really think about if the chart's doing its job, because
okay.
it's funny. Like, if it peaks at 60, it suggests all the dudes at your mom's house are 60 years old. If it peaks after you've had, 6 beers, it suggests all the dudes at your mom's house are heavy drinkers. And it just, like, it's so silly and so stupid, but it's also so useful across all the different kinds of charts that I really just love that one.
People just like expect it when they're playing with you. They're just like, we can't wait to see when the dudes at your mom's house card and now you're gonna use it
you,
this time.
you know it's coming, yeah, for
That's
sure.
awesome. All right, so after Charty Party,
Yeah,
how did this snowball into what it is today?
yeah. So we with our Kickstarter, we were like, well, we sort of have two options here. We can either buy the amount of inventory we need to fulfill Kickstarter and put the extra money in our pocket and, like, call it a day, or we could spend all the money we made on Kickstarter on inventory and see if we can't
Mm,
figure out how to sell these games outside of the context of Kickstarter. Um, we chose the second option, and kind of figured out how to use Amazon and get a listing up. And at the time, we're on Shopify now, but we built a Squarespace site for Charty Party. Um, we figured out something that I think is very cool that I don't think a lot of people know. But regardless of where you sell your products, you can use Amazon's fulfillment services. So we use a service called ByteStand that connects our Shopify store to Amazon. And when
okay.
somebody orders on Shopify, ByteStand fires it over to Amazon, and Amazon delivers it to your door. And basically, what that means for a small business is you've got immediate access to this vast network of warehouses kind of all over the
Right.
country and, all over the world. And the shipping rates are a little bit cheaper. And in some cases, that could be the difference between having a business and having a hobby.
Just this is total ignorance talking here. How do you distribute to those warehouses? Is it something that like you send a certain amount to a certain place, or is it like on demand? Like how does that work? Like Amazon, I just picture these giant warehouses and buildings and like just people sending shit there and the staff figuring out where to put it and then they just wait for an order. Like how does it
Yeah,
how
I
does that
mean,
work?
you're not wrong. So one of the things that, and we've used others, they're called third party logistics providers, 3PLs.
Mhm.
We've used other ones, and kind of the upside of the other ones is you're going to have an account manager, somebody you can call when something goes wrong and, like, get help with it. You don't get that with Amazon. So, like, there's not a lot of visibility. There's not a lot of help if something goes sideways. So, like, there is some downside. The upside is, if so, you bring the thing in from China. Kenny helps you get it in from China.
Thank you, Kenny.
It lands in a warehouse somewhere. You put labels on it, and then you schedule a truck to pick it up and take it to an Amazon warehouse. Um, your inventory might sit for a while, but once you establish a sales history, um, the Amazon system starts to figure out, well, we need 10% of the inventory over here, we need
Okay.
4% of the inventory over there, and they just automatically do all that stuff.
That's
And
awesome.
if you're using another 3PL, you kind of, I mean, they'll help you, but you kind of have to figure that out on your own. And um, to pay for your inventory to move around to be as close to the house where it's going to, find its home,
Mm,
ends up costing you a ton of money. And it's just so simple to do these very complicated logistical things with Amazon. So
yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine like you would have to have a list of every sale and like organize it by region and then try and decide exactly because you never know, something could heat up, something could cool down. Like anything could really happen. Is there? Do you sell internationally? Is there anything that sort of helps
We
you there?
we're on the very front end of selling internationally. So we had a licensing partnership with a company who I adore. They treated us incredibly well. They're called Big Potato. They make a bunch of good games. But Big Potato licensed our games for a little bit while we've kind of figured out how to do it ourselves.
Okay,
So we're on the front end of figuring out how to do it ourselves.
awesome.
But it's similar in the sense like we can use Amazon for our back end fulfillment. We have a Canadian version of our Shopify site, a UK version of our
Gotcha.
website. So we're taking baby steps. It would be disingenuous for me to tell you that we're good at international business right now. We're
Good.
trying.
Yeah. Well, listen.
We're getting there.
Everyone, I mean, you're only 6 years old. Like you
Yeah,
could barely chew solid food. You're fine.
that's true.
You're still on your chicken.
Very
You're
true.
still on a chicken nugget diet. You're all right.
Yes, right.
Um. All right. So let's. I want to get. There's two games here.
Okay.
First of all, Ransom Notes. Just really quickly, I don't know how it wound up in my house. I
Yeah,
think it was my cousin that brought it over, but it stayed in my house
yeah,
because there's like I brought this so that we could play something. I think it was a holiday or something.
yeah.
And now it's like it's in the china cabinet next to my great aunt's fine china. So it's there. It's there and it's ready to
Excellent.
be played. Um,
Good
so
neighbors.
so that was awesome, and that's also one of those party games where you're taking those like little magnet tiles and you're making silly sentences, stringing them together to answer a prompt.
Yeah,
Um, but then we got something totally different.
yeah.
And one of the first one I want to talk about is Tiny Laser Heist because
Okay.
that is adorable and hilarious and so silly.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about how that came to be because that's very different than
yeah.
you know.
Um, I like this story a lot. So Evan and I keep a Google Slides document of new game ideas, and every time we have an idea for a mechanic or a theme or whatever it is, we make a slide, and the slides are like a picture, a few bullets, and like maybe a title if we have it. And so when we start over on the development cycle, we visit this slide document. We're like, what's in here? Is there anything that like we're interested in doing? Um, one of the slides I made at one point was like, what if we made all of the mini games for Mario Party real? And like we just made them real and put them in a box. And like there's the one where you flip the cubes of steak, there's the one where you shake the jar with the candy, and like
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of these mini games. I was like, let's make them all, let's put them in a box. And Evan was like, that's going to cost us like $5,000 to make that, and we're going to have to sell it for $30,000 to make any money. So we were like, well, what if we took one of those activities? And we started with this sort of cooperative, you touch the thing and I touch the thing, and we've got to carry it around together, right? So we had that core mechanic, and then we were like, well, what's the environment you're doing this in? And I'm a 45-year-old man. Evan's a 30-year-old man. Like heist movies are a big part of our life. And we're like, well, it makes perfect sense that we set this in a museum, and you're stealing jewels, and you're on this heist. So it went from Mario Party in a box down to like this single activity. But we really tried with in a lot of ways, Tiny Laser Heist is two games. It's the dexterity game where you're working with partners to move the jewels around and the locks around. But then there's this card game where it's like it's not quite social deduction, but it's definitely social subterfuge and negotiation and that sort of stuff.
I call that
And
social fuckery, is what I call it.
yeah, social fuckery is a great great descriptor for it. But I actually think that's where Tiny Laser Heist shines. Is like we tried really hard to make it feel like a heist. So if you're not familiar with the game, you don't have regular teammates. Like you have to negotiate the heist team at the beginning of every heist. So like the person who was your friend on this heist might be your enemy on the next heist. And if you get cut out of a heist, you can play these cards called mischief cards where you make it harder for people to do their heist. So we tried to like capture the same emotions and high points that you get in a heist movie. And I really love it. And I think And I'm sorry to be going on and on about this, but
This
I'm
is
just really
why I
proud
do
of the
the
development
show. I
product.
love this
Right
stuff.
on. I think the thing when I recognized that Tiny Laser Heist was good, at our old house, we had a regular group of people from the neighborhood, several groups of people who would come over and play test games. And when I really recognized that we had something with Tiny Laser Heist is when I kept seeing, people my age would bring their 12-year-old, and we'd have 10 people around the table from ages 10 to 50, and everybody's having a good time. And games that transcend age like that are so rare.
Yeah.
I played a version of Candyland with my 3-year-old daughter earlier. She had a blast. It's terrible. It's so boring. But like the ability to like reach across generations and everybody at the table having a fun time, I think that's my favorite thing about Tiny Laser Heist.
Absolutely. And now I want to talk about the reason we're
Abduction.
here. Yeah. The reason we're here, the adorable Abducktion.
Yeah.
Like I said at the top of the show, this bad boy was all over. I don't even know when it came out. Like I assume it was when I was getting every single ad for it, but I need to know more. I need to know
Yeah.
more, and I need to know how this became, and I want to know actually how it's doing too.
Yeah. Cool. So Ransom Notes is our workhorse. Ransom Notes has been spent some time as the number one board game on Amazon. Like it.
Wow.
I don't know that I can really talk about the retail sales data we get, but let's call it in the top 5 of games in the large retailers you expect to buy games at.
Oh yeah.
Abducktion is our support workhorse, if that makes sense. So Abducktion just launched in Target. It's in Barnes and Noble. It does very good business for us. So Abducktion came around. I had a very stupid idea called aqueducts. And I got a whole bunch of these plastic ducks on Amazon. Aqueducts. I'm embarrassed to talk about this because it's such a bad idea. The idea was that the players had escalating sizes of cups, and you had to move your ducks. Like if you're familiar with that old game Mancala, where you move the beans across your table, and you like kind of had to count out. Like I can move 6 spaces because I got 6 beans. And
Right.
you got to drop
Yes.
one.
Yes.
So it was a drinking game version of that with these ducks, and we weren't going to tell people to put vodka in the cups, but like you'd figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, it would have been fun if like you could change the laws of physics and like if you could make it so the 2 ducks of the same size would displace different amounts of water somehow. You can't really do that. So I tabled the idea because it was very stupid. At the same time, Evan was working on this thing that was a little bit like how we landed on Tiny Laser Heist by thinking about Mario Party. He was thinking about Candy Crush in a similar way, and was like working with these wooden tokens and like manipulating them around and matching color matching formations and stuff like that. And so like he's creating this really cool fun activity, and I had this, these ducks are fun and interesting and cool and like tactile and all this stuff. And I was like, well, why don't we try doing that with the ducks? So we did, and it's obviously much cuter, and the board becomes pawns, and it starts to make a lot of sense. But then one night I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, there has to be a reason that the ducks are moving around and disappearing from the pond. And that's where the spaceship comes in, because
Because you can't resist a good pun. Admit
you
it.
can't.
Just admit it. If you didn't tell me you had a 3-year-old, I would know you're a dad just
Yeah.
because of the name Abducktion.
Yeah. So I love the name. Evan and I spend a lot of time naming our games, and usually we have this sheet where there's like 300 options for the name. When I cooked up the idea for the UFO, and that's why the ducks are moving around, like I wrote Evan out this email that's like, here's the UFO. The players are interns. They're doing research for whatever reason, and we're going to call it abduction, but we're going to spell it with a K. like that was it. We were done naming, and like there was no pushback at all from Evan. He was just like,
He's
"Yep,
a
that's
smart
it."
man. That's a smart man right there.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's the best. So yeah, and the other thing that's fun about Abduction, I don't know if we would have landed on the UFO, except you have young children. You know those little silicone snack holders that you give your baby? It's
I
got like
sure
two
do.
handles on them.
Yep.
Those were the prototypes of the UFO. So before we actually made the UFO, we were using those. And I got the idea because my son had one and was like shaking it with goldfish. And I was like, that's how we hold the ducks and we get them randomized. And, we put them in this thing, we shake it up and it stirs them up and it's the whole thing. So we
That's
figured out.
the snack holder that has like the little silicone on the top, like a demogorgon. Like the
Yeah.
four triangles, you put your hand in, you're like, it kind of hurts a little bit. It's okay.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Awesome.
The Demogorgon snack
The snack
distributor.
holder.
Uh,
Oh man,
yes, I mean that's Abduction.
it is the most. The more I talk to creators of games, both analog and digital, it's just like you, you creatives are just so weird.
Yeah,
You come up with these things, and now, like, I'm a creative person too, but like I would have never thought about that. I would have never put two and two together. You just blew my mind. I'm like, of course that's what it is. Of course
yeah,
that's what the UFO is. Like, duh.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
man.
That it is weird how people's different brains work differently because when I told my wife that I came up with that, because I was thinking, well, obviously the ducks have to move around for a reason. She was like, "Why did you even think that?"
Yeah,
And to me,
why
it's
did the
just
ducks
so
have to
obvious.
move?
Like
Just the
the
pieces are
ducks
ducks.
can't.
Ducks move.
Yeah, they're not going to just move, and they're not just going to disappear from the board. That doesn't make any sense. There has to be an outside influence,
You know,
right?
like
And
like that outside influence in chess. Those pieces have to go somewhere too.
well, listen, chess was invented 50,000 years ago
Before
or whatever.
UFOs. I get it. I
Yeah,
get it. I
right.
get it. If believe me, if they had those snack cups, it would have been
Chess would be a
a
totally different game.
Cheskin or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Uh, Speaking of chess, you don't know this. The game I'm working on now, we're about to get on Kickstarter in the next couple of weeks. Is
Ooh.
called Landfall, and the hypothesis for Landfall started as, what if chess was fun? Um,
At least you said it. At least,
no,
what if chess didn't feel like taking the SAT?
yeah.
What if you
So
didn't need a number two pencil to play chess?
right, right. In a TI-85. Yeah. So Landfall is players have 18 hex tiles, and we cooperate to like build this island. And the goal is that I'm trying to build my three formations, a mountain, a valley, or a plain, faster than you can. And on my turn, I can move my pawns around, I can throw tiles, I can bring new tiles into the board and that sort of thing. So certainly chess inspired, but like one of the things that's kind of a bummer about chess is if you don't memorize all the openings,
Right.
like you have a very low ceiling for how good of a chess player you can be. And the best chess players oftentimes are the people who have computers for memory. And it's like, I know all the openings. I know the decision tree on this opening or the decision tree on that opening.
Right.
And if this is your second move, I know I can pick from one of these 12 things. And um, so, it's a really cool, interesting game, despite what I said about it earlier, but it is formulaic. So we were like, well, what if it was chess, but like I said, fun, but also that it shifts out from under you all the time. So that's the idea of the tiles getting thrown around, is there's no static board. So by definition, you can't memorize a bunch of openings,
Right.
because you don't even know if the board's going to look the same from game to game.
Yeah. It also had, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but does it have an element of you trying to figure out what your opponent's trying to build so that you could throw a monkey wrench in their whole plan and like say, okay, I don't. Or it's kind of like what's that game? Is it Rummy? Where you're like picking up cards and trying to figure out, okay, he's going for four kings or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So um, to add to that idea, you're 100% right. It's like sniffing out what your opponent's trying to do before they do it and either slowing them down or stopping them. But you can also like you can throw their tiles around. So like I can use some of your tiles to build my mountain as long as I get my color piece on top of it before I claim the mountain. The rest of the tiles that build the mountain can be your color. So now I've effectively captured three of your tiles. So there's this like weird esoteric resource management element to it. It's really fun. I'm excited about it. I mean, I'm as excited as you can be when you're about to launch a Kickstarter. I still feel like I want to throw up every time we hit go. It's a very nerve-wracking experience, but
I get it.
it'll be up there soon.
I get it. Trust me. And um, all right. Well, so you just gave us like usually I get to like, hey, you working on anything coming up soon? That's cool. But you hit me up already, like, and I don't expect it, but yeah, no, that's awesome. Um, is there anything else you want to kind of plug before we get into our next little segment of the show? Is there anything? Uh, do you have a favorite game that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about or anything like that?
That's ours or
Yeah.
somebody else's.
No, we'll get to the other stuff later.
Yeah,
Something
my
on yeah.
favorite game that we make is actually one of our smaller performing products. It's called Vens with Benefits. And Vens with Benefits is a byproduct. At one point, I tried really hard to convince Evan we could put Venn diagrams in Charty Party. I really do think we could have put Venn diagrams in Charty Party. He disagreed. I wasn't willing to like die on the hill. But like the idea of Venn diagrams is hilarious to me. It was very big in internet culture for a long time. Like you remember the memes on Twitter and all that stuff. And we were like, well, let's just make a game out of that whole activity. So Vens with Benefits works where there's a deck of cards that are pretty mundane things like school and kids, balloons, whatever, just like boring stuff. And then there's another deck of cards that is somewhat provocative, like priests, your uncle, like not inherently gross, but like
There's
just on
subtext.
the, there's something provocative there. And so you take a card from the one deck and a card from the other deck, and your job is to connect the two. One of my favorite examples we got from a player was um, uh, nipples and cats. And the person wrote, "My grandma has two." It's just so dumb.
So
but it's
simple.
hilarious. Yes, but it's just hilarious, and like the way people connect these things. Maybe not as funny, but one of the ones that that sticks in my mind for some reason is hot air balloons and my ex-boyfriend and like full of hot air, empty inside, like just and it's
Completely
it's cool
useless,
because
antiquated, unnecessary. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of things.
once we realized that as long as you have a deck of pretty tame subject matter with a deck of like almost not tame subject matter, matching those two things up is fun. It's not fun if you match up two provocative things or two mundane things. Like it has to be that kind of ambivalence between the two subjects.
I mean,
But anyway, I love Vens with Benefits. I think it's great.
That's sort of the formula to a joke, right? It's like
Yeah.
priest or rabbi and whatever. Okay, that's the weird. And they go into a bar, totally normal. A bar is normal. People go to a bar, and then there's what happens when this weird hits this normal, and then like boom situation. That's totally what it is.
Yeah.
All right, now we're gonna get into my favorite segment, and everybody's favorite segment, and hopefully it'll be yours too. It's rapid fire time. This is where I get to know you. We get to know you on a more deeper, intellectual, and silly level.
Yeah, right on. I'm pretty lame, so I hope this is fun. But let's go.
So I'm gonna hit you up with one of my favorite ones then first, because it'll get your creativity going. It is 3 a.m. You are doing a sleepy time sleeps. Your phone rings. It is the police. Evan has been arrested. What was his crime?
Evan's crime. I think Evan would definitely commit a white collar crime. He's very
Ooh.
squeaky clean, like really mature and thoughtful and wise for his age.
And it's suspicious,
Um,
isn't it?
but like if I got a call and they were like, "Hey, we think Evan's embezzling money from the company and we need you to come down to the station and talk," like I would not be super surprised about that. Some sort
Wow.
of white collar crime.
Reverse it. Evan gets a
Okay.
call. You've been arrested. What was your crime?
Uh, I accidentally killed a guy. No, uh, I I have gotten older, but I do still like to party. So maybe like something in the public intoxication realm. I don't drink and drive or anything like that, but
Streaking.
uh,
Yeah.
I drink in Uber, but I am kind of noisy,
Sure.
and I can be obnoxious. So maybe something in that arena. Yeah.
Mm. Is cereal a soup?
Technically, but in a very irritating way. Yes,
Mm. Mm. Right. Okay.
I think.
Um, what would
I don't
what
know if
would
I
you
can
rather
stand up.
have? What would you rather have? Uh, wet underwear or wet socks?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Kill me now. Uh, I'm assuming
Just water.
that,
Water. Not
yeah,
yeah.
I
Not,
and I can't immediately deal with it.
it's
Honestly,
yeah, like you have to
I'm
spend your
gonna
day
say
in it.
wet underwear,
Yeah.
because I'm kind of imagining like it's cold and I'm gonna have to walk somewhere, and
Mm.
like if you got wet socks and you're like tromping through the snow we've got outside right now, that's gonna be a really bad. Not that wet underwear is gonna be a great time, but
Yeah,
I
that
think wet
would
socks are gonna be a
both
really bad time.
both are in just a terrible time, you know.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, my
Um,
underwear is pretty wet just regularly, so
just
I'm
from
used to
yeah, just
it.
from sweat and sitting in a leather chair, um, or pleather chair for that matter. What is your current favorite game, tabletop game?
uh, Arc Nova. I don't know if you've played Arc Nova,
I
but
have
you're
not.
building a zoo, and it is incredibly complicated. There's so much going on. It takes up like 4 feet on the table if you're just playing two people, and it's just zoo building chaos, and I love it. It's so fun.
Who's that? Who's that by?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Oh, and I
Was
don't
that
have the box right behind.
North Star?
I'm not going to
I
remember.
don't remember.
Um,
That
but
sounds
I
like
love
something
it.
they
The
would
other
make.
one I'm playing a lot right now is Gnome Hollow.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love the most about Gnome Hollow, and this is going to sound stupid, but the magnets like that keep your little cylinder pieces in place on your board, they didn't have to do that. And I know it costs more to produce the game because they did, but it's such a good feeling for the player that your pieces stay where you want them because of the magnets. I just deeply appreciate that.
Let me make sure I'm Gnome Hollow. I want to make sure this is the game I'm thinking of. Yes, yes, absolutely. This was I played this at PAX U, PAX Unplugged. I was staying with some friends down in Philly, and they actually bought this, and we played it together, and it was
Yeah,
we had a blast playing that game. Oh, Gnome Hollow still.
yeah, it is super good.
Absolutely.
Arc Nova was designed by Matthias Wig, and the publisher is um, Fjordland Spiel.
No,
Uh,
I'm not
oh,
familiar with
it's
that.
got a bunch of publishers. Capstone is one of them. Yes,
Oh, yeah. Uh, maybe I'll check it out. I
it's
know
fun.
I got to go to Target and get me some Abduction. So
Yeah,
now that I know it's there, um,
it is. It
I
is.
think I saw it actually.
Target is now starting off your stuff in test stores, so it's like it's in 500 stores. You're in New York though, so I think
Yeah,
you're
I
probably
think my
one of
store
them.
is one of those stores because we
Yeah,
owe it. Like I was so lucky. I know Target big box. It's like support mom and pops, whatever. But there's so few mom and pops now that actually sell like newer stuff. And my local Target would always have something that I've never heard of or never seen before. It was the first place I actually saw Wingspan.
Yeah.
which I know is crazy, but that was the first time I ever saw that game on a shelf was at a Target, and this, and then everybody's playing it. Um, yeah, no,
Man,
absolutely.
that idea, like, I 100%, I am a small business, so yes, please support small
Yeah,
business. But like, there is this weird ecosystem where like my small business only exists because of what Target can do for us
right,
and because of what Amazon allows us to do. So
right.
like, it is a weird symbiosis.
What we need is competition. What we need is
Yeah,
more options for you to sell your game.
sure.
That's really all it comes down to. Hopefully, we can have less consolidation in the market. Anyway,
But
this is
yeah,
rapid
shop at your
fire.
local game store if you can. Yeah, sorry, we slowed it down. Let's go.
No, that's fine. That's listen. Again, this is why we do it. Get to know each other. I want the
Cool.
people I want the people that are watching this and listening to this understanding there are human beings that make the games.
Yeah.
That is something that seems to get lost in the shuffle with, you know, comments on videos and whatever. Like, oh hey,
Don't
remember people made this.
don't read the comments.
Yeah, let's not be dicks about it. Um, just don't buy the game. You don't like it, don't buy it. All right, let's get a couple more in there. Um, let's see. I don't have my list in front of me. Okay. Uh, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Sure. Yeah. I am a big fan of food in general. I have stuff I don't like, but some ham and pineapple on a pizza. Not every day, but
No,
I'll
no, not every
for
day.
sure.
Not the default for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You're taking a hike. You're among nature, and
Yep.
you find the perfect stick. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
What is the first object that stick becomes?
A walking stick, but only until I've walked far enough I can find something to swing it at that I'm pretty sure I can hit pretty hard and not break the stick.
Mm. So you're looking for that thwack sound, that perfect
Yes.
thwack.
Yeah.
Very good. Um, another tangential to that. Um, you shall not pass. That's something you're gonna do. Your walking stick.
Um, Not at first. I think depending on how long I play the stick, it would be maybe like fifth or sixth on the playlist.
Okay.
But
All right. Yeah.
I'd have to go through a lot of Star Wars before I got there.
Star
But yes,
Wars, and there's always a shit. There's always one of
yeah,
those in there too. I got to throw one of them in
very sure.
there. God, men are simple creatures, aren't we?
Yes,
Really are.
delightfully so. I hope.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What is your go-to drinking snack?
My go-to drinking, I love pretzels. Soft
Classic.
pretzels, hard pretzels, a little bit. Hot wings. I think Memphis is famous for barbecue. We've got a sneakily good fine dining scene, but I think you could put our hot wing scene on par with our barbecue scene. And I love all sorts of hot wings.
Dope. We'll get two more questions here. What is your go-to high fantasy class?
Oh wow. Okay. I I'm a lover, not a fighter. So maybe like a bard.
Okay.
Um, but no, I think in any of those, I think you know you're playing the green deck if you're like the fighter or whatever. And I like to make sophisticated choices in games. So whatever's going to allow me to do that in the context. Like let's get weird.
Gotcha. All right, the final question here. This one, I there's no doubt in my mind that you've thought about this before, but it's always one
Okay.
of those questions that gets people thinking.
Okay.
If you were given any IP to make a game of,
Oh,
what is the IP?
Futurama.
Oh shit. Okay.
I've got a game idea right now that I think is so awesome. I don't want to do it without the Futurama license. Like in my imagination, it is a Futurama game. I have emailed everyone I could find an email address for who might be associated with licensing Futurama. I cannot get an email back. If somebody who works in licensing can get me the Futurama license, or just get me in touch with who I have to talk to, please, 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 please.
That is
I want to make a Futurama game so bad.
Is that well, there's only 3 companies now that actually put out shows. That is Hulu, which is
Yes.
HBO, which is
Fox.
Yeah.
Like I've emailed people at all of those organizations
Okay.
trying to figure out how to get the Futurama license.
Okay. Well,
Can't do it. I'm sure there are people who like know how to license stuff who are like, this guy's an idiot. It's so easy to figure out, but I just can't. I don't know how to do it.
heard that. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. And actually, before that, I did want to ask,
Sure.
without giving spoilers and without giving too much out there so it's not stolen from you, what kind of game is it?
The Futurama game?
Yeah.
So in your imagination, think like Ticket to Ride.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
got it.
But there's a city building and time travel, and like there's a bender deck where like if you do something, you have to flip over a bender card, and like sometimes Santa Claus shows up and like you have to hurry to get out of the way before he kills you, and like mom shows up. Like anyway, like it's I'm telling you, in my imagination, this is the best game ever made, but it has to be Futurama for all those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously makes sense. I mean, you could make it with just like placeholders and just be like, listen, it's done. Here it is.
Yeah.
I need to put Futurama on this.
Yeah.
Somebody
tell me. And listen, if somebody else makes it and I get to play it, that's good enough for me. Like
we're gonna shoot for the stars.
I hope I get to make it, but
we're gonna shoot for the stars. We're gonna get you that damn license.
Yes.
We're gonna get, because I don't know if you've ever told that on a podcast. I don't know if you ever told that on video anywhere, but it's out here now. It's out there in the world, and somebody could share this with someone.
Yeah,
we could get this thing done.
I would love to make a Futurama game.
Oh, I'd play the shit out of that.
Yeah.
I would play. Oh man,
that game, that show. There's still like, if you've watched it a lot, I could bring up 2 episodes that like might bring a tear to your eye.
Oh, yeah.
And who knows when was the last time you watched it, right? And you know which ones I'm talking about already.
I know
like,
one at least.
Bring it up and you know what I'm talking about.
Probably both, actually.
Fry, you have to wake up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that game, that show is probably, in its own right, in its own way, probably the best written of those like
it's great
adult-ish animated shows. Like there are some that are really clever. There are some that are like South Park is probably the sharpest.
It's brutally funny.
Yeah, like but there's nothing like Futurama's like storytelling.
Futurama is like 30 Rock as a cartoon.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Thank you very much for watching and listening, everyone. Thank you, Josh. This was awesome. Where can everybody find? I'm going to have links in the description, but for those who are just listening and closing their eyes on their commute to work, hopefully not driving. If they are, Godspeed.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, don't be closing your eyes. Keep your eyes on the road, folks. Where can everybody find you? Where can everybody find Very Special Games and all that other fun stuff?
Veryspecialgames.com.
Booyah. You're on the social medias?
A little bit. We've got a TikTok that does pretty good. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Oh, LinkedIn. All right. Well, hey, maybe we could get the licensing for Futurama to.
I've tried on LinkedIn even, but yes, please, we'll put it out in the world. Let's get it.
Thank you, Josh. It was an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. You are always welcome here on the show. If you want to, maybe when you release your next game, you want to come and on talk about it or whatever, I'm totally down with that.
Anytime,
thank you.
Man.
Absolutely. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, listeners. And as always, please be excellent to each other.